Qualcomm's been doing cutting-edge work in wireless technology for decades, from 3G to 4G to 5G. And to witness a lot of this and to lead a lot of it has been Jim Cathey. He's been at Qualcomm for 16 years, with 10 of it overseas. So Jim, let's get your perspective on 5G a little bit. What has 5G done for us so far?
16 years at Qualcomm, so I haven't seen, I'm not the consummate expert. 16 years, you don't see the entire industry. At Qualcomm, you need to be like a 25-year veteran to be able to come up and say, I've seen it all, I know exactly what 5G did for us. But I do have my own snippet of time, and I would say that I think when this industry looks back, you're going to find that 5G was probably one of, if not the best G investment in the history of all the Gs. And it sets us up for 6G. It already has massive adoption. If you look at the data consumption is improving by, I think it's a 5x multiple, is the forecast from 2020 to 2027. There's already 3 times as many 5G connections as there are 4G connections, or historically 3 times more. Already wildly successful from what you would typically say, those are the metrics that we want to use to measure this. But if you look a little bit further, you'll find that this technology, 5G, actually now has made it possible for us to grow other industries. Industrial IoT, for example, automotive, medical, I mean, the list just continues. So many industries are digitizing, it's kind of hard to keep up with. But I don't think that would have been possible without 5G and all the spectrums, the sub-6, millimeter wave, and of course the mid-band. All of them work in concert. And I do think that when we look back in time, we're going to find that this is probably one of, if not the best G investment for the future, especially when, and I told you I wouldn't answer long on each question you gave me, but I fibbed.
It's okay.
Especially when you look at where the future is going. We can talk about the industries and how they're digitizing, but what we're going to see in generative AI is really going to be a consumer of data. It will be very prolific. It can't all live in the cloud. There's so much demand for it. You're going to have to use distributed compute. It's going to have to live on the devices. The devices are going to be able to manage these parameters. And I think that'll come faster than all of us can imagine. And 5G is already ready for that. So if you think about it, we've already future-proofed what we should have done before, but now we're able to do that. And then that'll continue on with the Gs that follow. Probably be the best G ever in the history of the industry.
Well, that's great, Jim. And we've been investing tens of billions of dollars the last few years in these 5G networks. So I guess you'd say that it's worth it based on what you're seeing in the industry, right?
Yeah. You'll see it really pay off when you see the benefits that come from leveraging every piece of connectivity with distributed computing capability with AI. Once all those pieces come together, you're going to see where there will be products and services that make deliveries of things that people didn't think of in the past.
And I know people are concerned about some of the risks of AI, and I think you have some interesting perspectives on some of this generative AI and what it can do for us. So maybe share some of those examples. Yeah,
so AI is definitely, generative AI, large language models, ChatGPT, it definitely grabbing the headlines. And one of the things I like to do is, yes, as soon as you talk about this, the natural move of someone is to think, wow, what could go wrong? Ignore that for a moment. Constantly remind yourself, what could go right? And I'll give you a couple of ideas that they're just wonderful where this is going to take us is, think about education. Education is one of the cornerstones, one of the building blocks to society. Whether you're a developed country or a mature country, you definitely have to have good education. It makes a big difference in your citizens' capabilities, your economy, what have you. And with this AI in the future, you're literally going to be able to have a tutor on any subject that you'd like. Now think about that. When I went to school, high school and college, I did have tutors, and I was able to afford it. There are a lot of students that wouldn't have been able to afford it. If you could have a tutor for every topic, and a tutor that knew how you learned, and the best way for you to learn, and was able to work with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it'd be amazing. You're going to see those types of things. They're already starting to pop up. That's one example. Let me give you another example that'll just hit home. I want you to think of a family that might have a tight grocery budget. Maybe their grocery budget for the week is $200, $300, and they have a family of 4. and one of the family members is a diabetic, the other family member might be a vegetarian, and you need to plan for the whole week, 5 days, say, not a 7-day week, just 5 days. You'll literally be able to use your phone, or you can go online and you can say, I need to have a menu for my family that fits in my budget, that works with what their needs are. I'd like you to show me what those meals are going to be for each day of the week, show me the recipes, show me where I can find those items in the store, that it all fits within my budget. And oh, by the way, show me an option that on the 5th day, if we just save a little bit more, does that give us enough to go out to dinner to XYZ restaurant? All that'll come back. It'll all come back just like that. It'll be working on your history. It'll work on science. It'll work on the medical records that are out there. That's an application that, even for myself, I would use that. Now, warning, you wouldn't want to come to my house and have me cook for you. I am a horrible cook. But I definitely would be able to keep it within the budget.
Those are some exciting examples. Education, nutrition. We always talk about healthcare, but nutrition is exciting.
Yeah, especially if you have children that maybe need a little bit of help there, right? They need more exercise. They need a little bit better of a diet that matches where they need to go with their life. It's a nice way to plan and keep it within the budget, and it does it for you. You don't have to be an expert.
Right. Earlier in the session, we talked a lot about connectivity and fixed wireless access and the successes that 5G is having with fixed wireless access. But you have a global perspective. So what are you seeing around the world, and how will that help benefit the U.S.?
Fixed wireless access, probably a year ago, I came out of one of the trips in Southeast Asia. Maybe it was more than a year ago. And I said, this FWA is going to get on fire. We're going to see volumes that we've never seen before in the CPE market or the FWA market. And we're experiencing this. Overseas, the numbers are astronomical. I don't see it stopping. I want to say it's 3, 4, 5x of what we've ever seen historically. And why that's important is you now have the ability to drive the economics of these devices down. Before, they were lower volumes and they were a little bit cost prohibitive for the carriers, but they muscled their way through it anyway. Now, when they look at the last bit of their connectivity with their customers, the carriers have the ability to add it in as part of their infrastructure. They can amortize it. They can treat it differently financially. But more importantly, because those volumes are come up so much in FWA, we now have line of sight for a CPE for a consumer, a home, that's in the neighborhood of $100. That was never seen before. And that just feeds on itself, and it drives more and more volumes. I think FWA will be a big market for a long time to come. I also see it coupled with millimeter wave. It's a very good marriage, especially in the homes, a lot in Southeast Asia. I've seen this in Indonesia. I've seen it in Brazil. I've seen it in India. India, we just announced a big agreement with Jio where they're going to start taking 5G nationwide. They're going to take millimeter wave, and they're also working hard on extensive coverage with fixed wireless access. So it's a big market. How does it benefit the U.S.? Lower cost models of the devices coming in, more propensity to couple it with millimeter wave. And you have carriers in the U.S. already that are benefiting from that, Verizon and T-Mobile. And I will tell you, in the U.S., the one benefit that people just kind of miss, most of us are living in a big city, and you have broadband, and you don't think too much about it. There's a lot of people, a lot of families, and now I'm back to the menu idea, right? Come up with a budget for my week. Think of the family that lives in the inner city, has a great job, but they can't afford to buy a house. Because of what T-Mobile and Verizon did, they now give families a chance to do the following. Hey, you know what, I can work from home, and I don't have to be in the inner city. I can buy a house in rural America, and now I can get that connectivity so I can work from home. It's a big difference in their quality of life, and you should thank the carriers for that investment. But I think FWA is going to change a lot of things.
That's great. It's great to point out the global scale that's necessary in our industry and the benefits it brings to both consumers and businesses. Earlier in the session, we talked about the need for licensed full power spectrum, particularly mid-band spectrum. Any thoughts you have there, and how some of those global economies of scale should be brought to the U.S.?
I think you're going to find that the amount of spectrum and bandwidth that's needed is going to be never ending. It's only going to be uphill, and you're going to have to, like I said earlier, in concert have mid-band available as well as sub-6 and millimeter wave. All three of them need to work together. The mid-band in the U.S., we will have to work a little closer with our government, specifically the Department of Defense, but they're all going to work in concert together, and there'll never be enough because more and more will get added.
Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Any more closing thoughts here, Jim, as you look towards what 5G will bring to us in the future and around the world?
I think for those of us here in Washington, D.C., spectrum policy is now equal to economic policy. And that's a very powerful statement if you think about that. That tells you that the telecommunications industry is so tied to our future and our future growth that the decisions that we make in spectrum will definitely have an impact in the economy that's far more reaching than it ever has before with just our traditional carrier and telecommunications industry, because it's very pervasive. The U.S. is going to have to continue to show leadership in spectrum policy, continue to drive on global standards, and I think if those are the two things that we take away from this talk, this is very good.
Absolutely agree. Thanks for your insights, Jim. We look forward to your continued leadership
Yeah, you're welcome.
in 5G, both here and abroad.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tom.
Jim, Cathey.